Hi guys, I'm Jasmine and you're watching my channel, The Curious White Coat. This video is going to be a week in the life of a med student. Right now I'm actually getting ready to drive back to Miami where I go to medical school for my emergency medicine rotation that starts in the morning. So I had a little bit of a break so I could go to some residency interviews, and now I'm going back into the hospital. So I'll take you guys along with me to see what happens. This is gonna be kind of a long drive, so I've got some chocolate covered pecans for a snack. And I'm gonna be singing with my girl Adele the whole way down. There are definitely pockets of the Central Florida area that are pretty rural and have some farmland. It's definitely more rural than Miami, but it makes for some pretty views on the long drive. And that's a wrap. So I just finished my shift and it is dark outside. I'm actually behind an ambulance that came here from the hospital. I am ready to head home, y'all. Good morning. So I had my first ever shift in the emergency department last night. Right now I'm walking, getting a little bit of exercise. I'll show you guys the view. So really pretty. So last night, my first ever shift, there's quite a bit of variety as you would expect in the emergency department. I saw quite a bit of different types of pathology. So I saw a pneumothorax, which is when you have air enter into the chest cavity where your lungs are. But rather than air going inside of your lungs as you normally would to breathe, the air actually entered around the lungs and was pushing back on this person's lungs. So part of his right side had actually collapsed, part of his right lung. So the solution for that is to literally poke it. So we stuck a needle into his chest and that caused air to come out, and you could actually hear the whooshing sound. And then we put in a chest tube, and he ended up being admitted to the medicine floor where he's going to stay for a couple of days. So another thing that I saw my first cardiac arrest. This person was actually brought in by an ambulance and they were already doing CPR. So when we saw them, they had been down for about 45 minutes. And I was the timer, so I kept track of every 2-minute cycle for CPR, pulse checks, and that sort of thing. Another thing that I saw, one of my patients who came in, he was having shortness of breath and he had this history of a heart attack. So I kind of was getting the vibe of maybe he could be having heart failure just from some things he told me in his history and how his symptoms presented. So we did an echo to see if there was any fluid around his heart. And an echo is just like this fancy imaging that shows you where fluid is around the heart. You can see if there's any fluid kind of under around the lungs, which we call a pleural effusion. So a lot of very interesting things. My school actually does the emergency medicine rotation differently. I am in my 4th year, so it's a requirement for us in our 4th year to do emergency medicine. The LCME doesn't require that for medical students to graduate, but we do it. So it's a pass-fail rotation, and we do work in shifts. So the schedule is a little bit more relaxed. I actually have a lot of night shifts. But since you don't have to come into the hospital every single day, it's helpful because right now I'm in the middle of residency interviews and I wouldn't want anything to conflict with that. For this rotation, I really want to work on my presentation skills and how quickly I'm able to see patients. Everything goes a lot faster in the emergency department than my other rotations that I've been on, so that's something that I definitely want to improve on. And you'll see that when you start going through your rotations, that there are different styles for every specialty. So I'm gonna finish my walk and probably get some Uber Eats for breakfast, order something, because I haven't had time to go grocery shopping or cook. So I'll see y'all later. My Uber Eats order never arrived, so that's pretty annoying. Someone out there is enjoying my breakfast. So whoever you are, I hope you like croissant sandwiches. I've got some tater tots. And when I saw the size of this box, I was like, oh my God, what in the world did I order? It's called Son of a Butcher, and it's supposed to be like a brisket sandwich. And this thing is definitely not healthy for you. It is ginormous. But I'm ready to eat. Not sure I'm going to eat it though while I'm studying, so that'll be interesting. I don't even have 2% right now. And I didn't even make it through the 12-hour night shift. So they dismissed me. I feel a little bad that I couldn't even make it 12 hours without feeling a little sleepy, but it is what it is. I actually have to drive all the way back to Lakeland in the morning, so I need to get a little bit of sleep. Overall, one of the things that was interesting is I know that emergency medicine is fast-paced, but I didn't realize just how fast-paced it was until today, when I had a couple of patients who all came through the same room, and the patient stories kind of started blending, because it's like, okay, I just walked into this room and somebody else had like a glucose of 566, which was actually one of my patients today. And then, you know, in that same room is someone completely different next. So keeping track of all that in my head is gonna be like a whole skill set on its own. And then there were quite a few patients that I saw tonight who were under Baker Act. So getting the story from the people who brought them in, whether it was officers, and then talking to the actual patients to see what their story was and kind of assess them too, was pretty good experience. But yeah, I'm really tired and my hand is shaking, so I'm gonna go to bed. Good night. I just got back home yesterday, and literally all I could do was sleep. I was so tired, but I was the only one home, so I actually had to watch our puppy, and he just got fixed a couple of days ago, and he's been really like needy and whiny, so it was very hard to sleep when he was around. We have to like carry him outside so he can do his business, and like sometimes he'll forget that he has sutures, and he'll just run and jump every time he sees another human being or another dog, because he's a puppy, and he's not allowed to do that because he'll open back up his sutures. In fact, he did open back up his sutures, and I had to take him to the vet so he could get them fixed. So now he has staples, and he's still trying to jump all over the place. So I don't understand that energy, but whatever. So I actually have a couple of interviews this week. I'm gonna go prepare for those a little later, but actually I'm gonna go outside, get a little exercise, and I'll show you the puppy too. Here is Puppy. Good morning. Good morning. Hi. Good morning. Can you say hi? Can you say hello? Can you say hello? Say hello. All right, let's go. So this is Appa's carriage. We actually have to walk him in a carriage. And you can see he's having some fun eating it right now. Does it taste good? Okay, so let's go ahead and get this walk on. I don't think I've ever met a dog that was more happy to not walk and be outside. I mean, just look at him. He's perfectly content to just roll along like he's the one doing all of the work. Just finished our walk for me, roll for him. You ready to go get some breakfast? I'll take that as yes. Yeah. And just so y'all know, he does have an Instagram. Follow him at Appa, the last Abram. What do you want to say to your potential new followers? Appa? Appa? Anyway, he's not cooperating, but he does make some pretty funny reels, if I do say so myself. So give him a follow on Instagram, guys. We're a little mischievous, and we don't have our leash, so let's go inside. So Appa is very happy and just relaxing outside with me. I'm actually going to start preparing for my interviews this week. So before each interview, I already researched all the different institutions I applied to. If I didn't know about them, I definitely was not going to apply. So I already looked a lot into them to see if it was a place that I wanted to go to. But before every interview, I like to go through all of the paperwork that they send us. So they send you stuff with like your salary, like your contract, which has your salary, the benefits, all of those things. I like to read through them, review their schedule that they have for all the years, and then also see my schedule for the actual interview day. So you may have gaps in between each virtual interview, and I just like to set reminders on my phone or alarms so I know when to wake up, when to come back in for the interview, when I can take my lunch break, all of that stuff. Especially because like there's all these different time zones. I'm on the East Coast, so having to do time zone math, which is just simple addition, but I still like get a little nervous and I want to make sure that all of the timing is correct. So I look at my schedule, set up my alarms, and I also like to look into my interviewers if I don't already know who they are. That way I can ask like more specific questions, like if they have something that they do that I'm interested in, like a certain subspecialty, or if they're really into medical education, because I think that's something I might be interested in. That way I can talk to them about how easy it is to get onto projects and see if there's anything they're doing that I'm interested in that I'd like to be involved with, and kind of see if that fits into the plan I have for my career. I also have some things that I like to kind of ask everybody to get as good of a feel for the environment as I possibly can, since it's virtual. So if I have an interview with the chair, which I pretty much have had an interview with the chair for every residency interview so far, I think that's pretty standard. I like to ask them just how often do they interact with the residents, is it on a daily basis, weekly basis, once a month, and are they speaking to the residents individually and getting feedback from them, because I think that's a good indicator of whether or not when I go to that program, how much accessibility will I really have with this person who has the potential to be a good mentor and sponsor for me in future endeavors that I might do. And then I actually had a surgeon during my surgery rotation, even though I'm going into neurology, I think this is still applicable, but he told me that you want to see who's doing the procedures. Is it the faculty or is it the residents? And he was saying that it's better if the residents get to do a lot of the procedures because that's what they're training for. And I think the same thing can apply for really any specialty. So you can easily look online and see how much time do they spend in Botox clinic, or doing LPs, or learning how to read EEGs, or do their own EMGs and nerve conduction studies. But it's better for me to know, like, okay, does the faculty let residents do that? How much autonomy do you have in interacting with patients and leading the team and preparing to be an independent physician? Because at the end of this, that's what I want. I want to make sure I have my skill set as sharp as possible and to be as competent as possible. So it's important to me to know just how do the faculty and residents interact, and how much of my time is going to be put towards the things that I want to do to further develop myself professionally and to have personal growth too. So I'm gonna go do that now. Okay, so this video is starting to get a little long. I'm gonna try to wrap it up here now. Tomorrow will officially be a week. It'll be Friday, and I'm gonna drive back down to Miami so that I can do my emergency medicine shifts. for the weekend. And right now I'm actually working on some of the compliance requirements for the VA. I'm not going to be rotating there, but if there's a potential that you can be rotating there, you have to make sure that your credentials are always up to date and don't expire. So I've got to go work on that, and that takes several hours. So I'm going to try to get that done because my cousin is graduating tonight, and I want to be able to watch her ceremony and scream really loudly for her. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you guys were able to get an idea of the week in the life of a med student. I'm in my 4th year, so everything is a lot more relaxed than it was in the first couple of years of medical school, which I'm totally grateful for. But like always, subscribe if you want to see more videos. Share this with anyone that you know that might be interested in the life of a medical student or interested in medicine. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. I dropped the dog food all over the floor, so we're gonna clean that up. That's my armpit.